Hello and welcome to How to Win the Lottery, Season 6, Delaware. Episode 1, Fight Club.
It remains to be seen about Delaware.
Episode 1, Fight Club by Chuck Palahniuk. I'm Joey Lewandowski.
I am Count Shredsula.
Ooh, you are still here. Very, very exciting. Welcome back to the show. 2 episodes in a row now, which is exciting.
I'm here. This is...
Sweet. Cool.
Home. This is home.
So, before we talk about whether or not this book takes place in Delaware, I looked up some Delaware facts.
Okay.
Because I wanted to do Delaware jokes.
Yeah.
And I looked up Delaware jokes.
Yeah.
And all the jokes were basically like, you know, the Polish jokes were just like, you could put in any ethnicity, and it's like the same thing. It's just like blah, blah, blah. So it's like, what's the difference between a diploma from the University of Delaware and toilet paper, $50,000? Like, it's like, you plug it, it's whatever.
Yeah. What do girls from Delaware wear behind their ears to attract men?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So like, what did Delaware wear or what did Delaware in New Jersey? Like those kind of things. I'm like, whatever. So I found actual facts.
Okay.
State bird, the blue hen.
Yeah. Can I tell you what I know about Delaware?
Yeah. Do you know the capital?
Dover.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing that I really know about Delaware is that it's a tax haven,
which is, in theory, comes into play for this novel.
Yeah. And Rehoboth Beach, right, is like a place that people vacation at sometimes.
Maybe. Do you want to know all these, or should I spread these out over these 3 episodes?
Spread them out.
Okay.
We don't need to know all of them at once.
I'm going to ask, do you want to know... I'm going to pick 3, because I have like 9 things here.
Just...
State bird, blue hen.
Okay.
During the Revolutionary War, the men of Captain Jonathan Caldwell's company, recruited in Kent County, Delaware, took with them game chickens that were said to be the brood of a famous blue hen noted for their fighting ability. And so when in battle, they fought so valiantly that they were compared to these blue hens. So they, I guess, were like, you know... State motto, liberty and independence. But I want to show you, this is the most important thing. There's a picture. There's a photo element here.
I love being shown things on a podcast.
The state dinosaur.
We have state dinosaurs?
They do. The state dinosaur is the Driposaurus.
Okay.
A Driposauridae, the Delaware state dinosaur. So a bunch of kids like 2 years ago.
Yeah. Let me explain this. So it looks like a velociraptor, and it's wearing like a necklace that is a D that is encrusted with diamonds of some kind, and it's wearing basketball shoes, and it has a I don't know what kind of hat that is, if that's a fedora or what.
It's dripped out though.
Yeah. It's the kind of dinosaur that you would cross the street to get away from. It looks like it should be called Date Raposaurus. This
is on the official Delaware.gov website, though.
Okay, all right.
Like, this is official. And the other thing I want to say, this might not continue, but the state beverage, milk.
Classic. Going with a...
Made the official state beverage on June 3rd, 1983.
June 3rd, 1983.
Relatively recent development.
Yeah, milk.
Explain the why Fight Club takes place in Delaware, and then I will explain why I don't think that it does.
Well, Fight Club takes place in Delaware. I think it's been retconned to take place in Delaware because in the movie, what they're doing is they're knocking down buildings that are credit card companies because they want to eliminate the idea of credit so that we can level the playing field for all Americans, as though this stuff were not kept on a server somewhere,
backed up anywhere,
and was just like records in the building itself. Can I say where I think you're going to say that it is?
Sure.
Washington.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, because all of Chuck's stuff takes place
and
in
he
the
also
Pacific
mentioned
Northwest.
SeaTac a bunch of times.
He mentioned SeaTac a bunch of times, but there is a thing he mentions me while I'm heading west to sleep at Mach 0.83 or 455 miles an hour. True airspeed. The FBI is bomb squatting my suitcase on a vacated runway back at Dulles. So he's flying from Dulles back home, flying west. I set my watch back 3 hours, was still after midnight. You do that when you go west as opposed to east. I think it's just like geographically it takes place out there. But then in the afterword,
canonically, he mentions that the address for
canonically, depending on the version of the thing you have,
the Paper Street
Soap Company.
The canonical address is Delaware,
Wilmington, Delaware.
Yeah.
I mean, I think the point of this novel is that it takes place everywhere, right? Like, it's just like, it's a national thing.
Kind of, yeah.
But I was reading and just like, oh no. Like, not that it matters, because we're just reading books and we want to read books, but like,
Yeah, no, it matters deeply.
It's funny that like not only one of 3 books about Delaware, which I know was as we talked about, more difficult.
It was a tough one.
But the first one we did is just not Delaware.
Yeah, but that's fine.
It's fine.
It's fine. It inhabits Delaware in spirit because like it is largely about lack of identity driven through isolation, and what could be more Delaware than that?
Truly,
right?
I got some other Delaware facts I'll save in terms of population and density and stuff like that. We'll save that for future episodes.
Yeah, can you look up, like, sometimes there's like porn searches by state.
Oh.
Or like favorite fast food restaurants by state. These are things that you can do this in another time to bring it into the next episode. You don't have to do this research now.
Okay, that's fine. It's probably some like political shit, like AOC nude, because they're in, I don't know. That's DC.
No, yeah. What are you talking about?
I don't know. I think I misread it.
Do you think Delaware is the capital of our nation?
No. I don't know.
No, because your boy Biden was a senator there for a long time.
True story, was on a first date recently.
Yeah,
and someone, the lady that I was with, said something about like she dismissed Joe Biden. I was just like, he's my uncle, right? She was just like, hold on, what? I was like, yeah, I was named after him. And she got like very like flustered and nervous. I was like, no.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Is it fun to deceive people like that for you?
It was a calculated decision at that point in the date where I was just like, there's not going to be a second date. But it was it played out fine. But I was just like, yeah, Uncle Joe. Anyway.
Yeah.
What's your history with this book and with Chuck in general?
I think I told you earlier that the first Chuck Palahniuk book that I read was the book Choke, which my brother shoplifted from Barnes & Noble.
Which rules?
Yeah, it's cool. And then after that, I read, probably in order, I probably read Fight Club and then Invisible Monsters and then Survive. But I read like maybe his first 6 or 7 novels out of the gate, and then I stopped because at some point it felt like
diminishing returns.
Yeah, there was not that much new.
Well, I think like what was exciting about him. So I saw a friend of mine reading Invisible Monsters on a school bus in high school, and I was like, that's the coolest cover I've ever seen in a book. Like the face, like the upside down, like the crone.
Yeah. That's not the version that I had.
But it's got the pink like splatter or whatever, and I was just like, that's super cool. And so she let me borrow it, and I read it, and I read from there. And I think what was exciting to me about him was that he was writing about things that like were wildly different than what we were reading in school, and that like what I had been reading even for fun, like as I was in high school, like starting to read like more adult stuff or whatever, it felt new and edgy and exciting and stuff.
Well, because I think the stuff that you read in high school, unless you're talking about like Catcher in the Rye, but even that, because that's from a different time. Like generally the stuff that you read, like the people in those books don't talk like you. Right. They don't have the same problems as you.
And this was like written in like 96. Like this is contemporary.
Yeah. It's really like, it's I think also like we can talk about this a little more later, but like the 1996 up until 9/11, there is this sort of free floating misery that like there's no real target for it. And you've seen this emerge in like how angry the music was.
Yes.
At the time, we've talked about this before. But it has like, he said, Tyler at some point in this book says like, our generation has no great war. It has no, like our war is a war of the spirit.
Yep.
And like, that's really true. Cause like men who are coming of age, and I say men because this is a book that's largely about masculinity. Men who are coming of age in that part of, the very end of the 20th century, their dads had fought in Vietnam. The people who were slightly older than them had the like, Wall Street stuff and all, and like the various insanities of the 80s. And the 90s, like people were really getting worked up about, like Monica Lewinsky and stuff like that, which is like not the same kind of thing to get worked up about.
Well, it's like now we have actual shit, and like people are getting worked up about like nonsense.
Yeah. I mean, we had actual shit back then, but it was not there was no media focal point to it, so you didn't have like access to it in the same way.
So what I think, when the movie comes out 3 years after the book comes out, and we've covered on another show that I do, geez, this is how to win the lottery.
Yeah.
But I do on 1999, the podcast. And like one thing that we've covered multiple times on there is, again, pre 9/11, people were creating, and like the movies were capturing the spirit of America, where it was like people are creating battles to fight, where it's like middle-aged white dudes just like, I'm just bored, right? And like, so like Fight Club and Office Space and American Beauty and like all these movies where like these people have money and success and whatever. They're just like, I don't want to do it anymore.
But it's also, and you see this in this book a lot, because like, again, like broken record, a primary reading of this book is a Marxist reading. Like this book is largely about, number one, alienation from labor, which keeps you, from feeling like you're a human being, right? Because labor is a primal drive. And then when you're doing something and being dehumanized for doing it, life tends to drift apart from meaning. Sure. And you feel like a drone or a shell or something that is like not fulfilling, and then you try to fill that hole with conspicuous consumption. So things that your job has earned for you earn money through your job, and then you use that money to try to alleviate the alienation that your job has caused, and you alleviate that alienation through buying stuff so that people can see that you're a certain type of person that you can then advertise. We obviously still do this, but now our conspicuous consumption is, I think it has pivoted into what a lot of people call virtue signaling and things like that. Now like that version of ourselves is like the Trump flag on the out front, because that's not something that ever really happened before. You didn't have this like almost psychotic. And this is I'm not even like, this is not like even a Trump thing that I'm talking. Like I'm not this like identification with one person, because you saw it with Bernie too, right? Like this like pure identification. I'm not associating Bernie with Trump. Whatever, fuck you. Stop like trying to do that with.
I didn't say it.
Not you. I was talking to the person that had my voice in their ear right now. Was trying to make like me into making a political.
You scared
point.
These people off already. Don't worry about that.
Like like people now are identifying through politics in a way that they didn't in the 90s so much, except for older people who identified through really, really, really hating Bill Clinton, or really, really, really hating Monica Lewinsky, right? That's like a, but you have people like the narrator in this who like, he's identifying through the IKEA catalog. He's identifying through having the perfect car for him, And
I think, the movie adaptation, we just did the whole unadaptable module. And I think that this is one of the best book to film adaptations that's maybe ever been done, because I think it captures a lot of it. And I think it does certain things maybe even better than the book.
I think they fucked up majorly twice.
What are those two things?
Number one, in the movie, one of the most cinematic parts of the entire book is not in the movie, which is when he goes and he signs up to fight every single person.
Yeah.
Like that is so good. And that would be so good visually. Yep. And it's so like in line with this idea of self-destruction that like it just thematically nails everything.
Yep.
Number two, the ending of the book is a lot better than the ending of the movie.
Where just nothing happens? Like the buildings do not collapse.
Well, where he's at the end in the mental hospital, and
also that,
and the people are coming up to him and saying like, "Sir," like they're like even in the mental hospital they're calling him sir.
So you're right. I think I need to figure out how to frame my thoughts. So I think the adaptation is very, very good. I think the movie pivots away because I think the book basically gets to a point where like Tyler, the other, like the fake Tyler, is not around. What is Fight Club about, by the way?
What is Fight Club about?
Yeah, people don't know. If they're 15 minutes into this episode and they haven't read the book or seen the movie, even though I feel like most people
It's about a guy who punches himself in the face in a parking lot, and people think that's so fucking awesome that they start a cult over it.
Yeah, okay, fair enough.
Is that a fair description of like that? That's like truly the
that is
the leap of faith that you have to make.
Correct.
That like someone physically attacking himself in a parking lot would draw enough interest and people being like, this guy is cool, we're going to follow, instead of the people walking away from him. That's a huge ask. And that is, because
I think once that happens and once people are fighting each other, then I see it growing from there. But that first group, I still don't.
You only get away with it because you don't know what the twist is.
Right.
If you knew what he was doing there, you would just be like, "What?" and you would just close the book. And
although
walk away.
it is like when you know the twist, he is so overt.
Every page,
so many times,
every single page.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
which I think is why it works.
I think so too. But it's also impossible for me to.
When you read this the first time,
I had seen the movie already.
When you saw the movie, did you pick up on? Did you pick up on the twist?
No, I don't.
Okay,
not until it was revealed at the end.
Okay.
Although now I would, because now like this twist done now is the corniest thing in the world.
Yes, correct.
Like the whole like it's basically akin to it was all a dream.
Yep.
Now,
which this was all a dream, but it's a weird kind of
not like that.
I know what you mean.
But like the whole like split personality twist.
Correct.
At this point is just like, bro, like
Yep.
you could not get away with this now. And to be fair to Chuck Palahniuk, that's not a criticism of him. The reason you couldn't get away with it now is because Fight Club did it,
and because people tried to copy
it became
him.
so
Yes.
like.
So I think in the adaptation, so in the novel, in what we're talking about today, I think the anti-capitalist, anti-consumerism angle and the the real purpose behind what they're doing is more clear.
Mm-hmm.
And I think because we talked about on the 1999 episode, and I think there's been a lot of people talk about like people learning the wrong lesson from the movie.
Yeah, for
and
sure.
like thinking like this is cool and we should do this. Where in the book, I think it's not like, hey, we should like fight each other. Like that's cool. It's like, no, like the world is not fair and we should do something about that.
Yeah, there's a much more again, like the crisis of masculinity is a crisis of capitalism.
Mm-hmm.
Like these are men who are unfulfilled because of consumer reasons.
Yep.
And like there is stuff in the book that reflects that idea that could give you the wrong idea. Like, oh, it's like, a group of men raised by women
Mm-hmm.
and things like that, which is like, that's a very like Fox Newsy talking point,
Right.
I think. But at the same time, I don't think that's what Chuck Palahniuk means by it.
No. I think if more people had read the book, I think they would have gotten the correct lesson if you want to take a lesson from this or whatever. But I also think if you straight up adapt the book in the way that the movie kind of like you're saying the cinematic fighting 50 guys in a row is not in the movie, because I think if you just follow the book, the Brad Pitt character is not like for like 45 minutes toward the end, like he just goes away. And I think they're like, well, we can't.
Right.
Like he has to go away somewhat, but like he's always kind of there.
Right. And this is and the movie largely is functional because of Brad Pitt's charisma.
Yes.
Like this was the movie that arguably made him into the star. I mean, he was like, 12 Monkeys, 7, etc., but he was not like cool.
Right. It was around this time, and this is going to put me in a very firm, cool guy in high school, but like,
yeah,
I was like, my 3 favorite actors are all in the same movies with each other. It's Edward Norton, it's Brad Pitt, and it's Matt Damon. It's this movie.
Oh, Matt Damon. That's a painful favorite actor to have when you're a kid.
It's this movie, Ocean's 11, and
sure.
Rounders. And like 2 of the 3 are in each of those.
Hey,
they
not
all
Good Will Hunting. I thought that as a math dweeb, you'd be a Good Will Hunting guy.
Hey, man. Watch it. No, but I think like I was just like, oh no, like this. But yeah, if there's something like Brad Pitt is so good in this movie.
Yeah, it's like the role that he was born to play. Plus, he's got those abs, man. Like it's hard to like that iconic thing of him with the like fucked up eye and he's just like covered in sweat, and then his just like he's so like just washboard
as like Marla falls off the bed behind him. Like there's one of my favorite comedians, Greg Barrett, for like years after would still refer to like that shot as like the pinnacle of like ripped, just like the Brad Pitt in Fight Club ripped, just like that's. I also think that like maybe it's because I'm so familiar with the movie, but it's hard to think of anybody else in those 3 lead roles.
Yeah,
like I think the Bob doesn't have to be.
Steve Buscemi is Tyler Durden.
Like I don't know that Meatloaf necessarily, but like in terms of the like when we do fantasy casting, it's just like it's hard to picture now any of those 3 as anybody else.
Right. Mm-hmm.
I also love, and I think it's a testament to both the novel and the adaptation of how many lines, like memorable, iconic lines that like dumb boys quote are just from this.
Like here's what I feel like maybe I dissed Chuck Palahniuk in the beginning, and I don't mean to, because Chuck Palahniuk like is a wildly compelling stylistic writer. you can sit down and read this book all in one sitting because it has a real engine to it, and because it's broken up into like individual sentences that are repeatable. They are like bumper sticker worthy. They're you know, it's an immensely quotable book, and he is lifting Amy Hempel's style.
But he's also very open about how much he loves Amy Hempel.
To his credit, and I'm 100% certain that because of Chuck Palahniuk, a million more people have read Amy Hempel.
I read Amy because he put out a list of like, here's my 8 favorite authors, and I tried like 2, and just like, and I'm like, I'm gonna try one more, and it was Amy Hempel. I'm like,
yeah,
this is maybe the best writer I've ever read.
Yeah, she's one of the best.
Unbelievable.
Certainly like the best American writers of short stories.
And I never really did creative writing much in school, like I did for whatever, but like I was more into the journalism thing. But like when I was reading him and then reading her, I was like,
you felt like you could do it. You were like, let me.
It wasn't like I felt like I could do it. Like part of it is that, but also just like I remember people writing pages and pages and pages and be like, you can tell a story on a page. Like you can so succinctly tell a complete story.
Yeah.
Because like some of her stuff is like a single page. Like this is because they also in the afterword he's like, Fight Club was a 7-page short story because my writing teacher is just like, that's the right story, that's the right length,
right? And
like it became a chapter in this, but it's like that's all you need.
It's also it's language heavy and not plot heavy. Like you're like waiting for that next turn of phrase, and you're not waiting for what happens next in the book,
right?
And he like one of the reasons why it's so successful is because it's so repetitious in like the specific words that he uses, but also like it is sticking to the message in almost a political way, the same way that like a politician will get up there and do a stump speech, right? And then he goes from town to town doing that same thing. Like on a page to page basis, you might get like an alteration of words, but you're getting the message on every page that like in this case about the, you know, spiritual crisis of these men.
But I think that's also what you were saying before about like Chuck, like the diminishing returns, like he so heavily leaned into that technique, I guess.
Well, it's also not his fault that like Nirvana, he launched 1,000 shitty writers.
Right. But like, I also think that there's a certain point where like, don't do that. Don't like keep cribbing your own thing.
Yeah. I mean, I think this is actually, it made me want to reread his other books because there was some stuff in here where I was like, oh, this is actually like really sloppy. This is not
this is his first novel, right?
Yeah. This is not as tightly like constructed or like there are parts where it's like when Tyler's like, oh, this is not as bad as it can get. You could have a recluse spider that bites you and it's like, I'm not really sure what that information does for the book at all, except for that you learned a fact while reading something and then like put that fact as dialogue and something. And so much of like this book is like, you know, he's just got like a flamethrower that's just like spraying information everywhere. And like the reason, one of the reasons why it's so successful is that, and again, not blaming Chuck for this, but these facts, these things that these like minute little blurbs of facts are like exactly the sort of mansplaining shit that people enjoy. Like they enjoy absorbing these facts so that they can go out and be like, repeat them later to someone else.
I know how to make dynamite. You want to know how to make dynamite?
Yeah. Or even like not even that, like you know, just stuff about like I don't know, like about the spider or about any number of the things that are in the book, but are like maybe not 100% necessary.
Well, because I also think having just read Infinite Jest, it's like there almost couldn't be a better follow-up to that than this, where it's just like, not that you don't have to think, but you just get through it.
Well, they're also like interestingly kind of, I mean, you pointed this out when we were talking about it. They're like kind of linked in that it's like sort of about like groups coming together and providing like an uplifting circumstance.
Well, also, I mean, they're literally support groups in both.
Yeah. And then like the actual Fight Club as being a support group is another thing altogether.
There was another book, and I don't remember. I'm not sure if I'm going to remember what it was, but there was another thing that give me time and I will figure it. But there's another one where I was like, this is just like another, maybe it was like the instructions. Oh yeah,
the penny gun. Is it the making the penny gun?
It's not that as much as like when he writes the instructions and gives the instructions, he's like, the number one thing is don't give this out. Don't share it with anybody. And like people keep showing up. And it's like here, like don't talk about Fight Club and people keep showing up. It's the same kind of like maybe you know what you're doing, like you're getting it out there, but like the number one rule is don't tell people about it.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if Levin like was a Chuck Palahniuk fan. To a certain degree.
Probably is.
At least.
I think a lot of people, I think even if you don't like love his stuff, I think he's undeniably important.
Well, he was also a guy that for like guys roughly our age. I'm 5 years older than you, but like within that like decade, like is a guy that like if you were into reading, you kind of couldn't avoid. You picked up a couple of his books and maybe they were for you, maybe they weren't, but like you definitely like, you know, he absorbed into pop culture in a way that very little actual literature does, right? I think I said in our text thread earlier, I think this is the book that the most people that I know have like read.
I think it's an easy sell. I think it's good and
especially
fun
because it's a movie.
And propulsive.
You can just go like, you like the movie? Yeah, read this book.
It's short.
Yeah.
There is a line that I don't think is in the movie that is very on brand for us. Did you catch it?
Give it to me.
Marla says, you can suck shit. It's like very near the end. When
you know what was really weird was all the human butt wipe stuff. I was just like, what is this?
That is weird.
Like, is this like some Pacific Northwest thing that people say?
I do like, because, you know, there's stuff like that. And also like the Brown Recluse where like, I don't know if it was Fincher or whoever like adapted the screenplay, just like, yeah, we don't need any of this. Like we can like, they smartly just kind of, you know, turn left on certain things. But yeah.
Jim Olds wrote the screenplay.
Okay. UHLS? Is that?
He's a good writer. I don't know what else he wrote beside that.
Can't look it up.
But it's funny if you watch the. I remember like when I watched when the DVD came out, it was like the golden age of director commentary and things like that. And they had a commentary that was Chuck and Jim Olds, both like and Chuck would be
together.
Like, yeah.
That's cool.
And Chuck would be like, "Did I write that line? Do you remember?" And then he'd be like, "Oh no." Like I remember specifically Jim Olds wrote the line like the "fuck Martha Stewart," that line.
Is the line "you're not your fucking khaki"? Is that in the khakis line? Is that in the book or is that not? Because like
I don't think it is.
I don't think it is either. And like that's like not the line, but like one of the lines from the movie.
Yeah. Well,
like the sentiment is certainly in the book,
and you're not the special and unique snowflake thing is in here too.
Yes, correct.
Like that's interesting change. Not sure why it changed, but I agree with it. He's all of the I am Joe's inflamed pancreas. Like they changed it to Jack
Joe's
in the movie.
Gag reflex. Yeah, and it's for the same reason. Like the National Geographic. Like he's
Reader Digest.
Reader Digest. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know why either. But
Jack is better.
Jack is better.
I'm not sure why, but it is.
Well, Jack and Jill. Like it's just. I think it's a more.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
What
do you think of the narrator not ever being named?
I think it's thematically on brand because he never tells her the real name, and like the fake name he tells her is Tyler, which is, I guess, like it's weird that that's the name that catches on. Like you almost wonder if like Marla told people about him. Like it's you know, because if he's giving a different name in every meeting, the one that she knows him as is Tyler. But then why does everybody else know him as Tyler? Like it almost feels like there should be a scene where she's like, that's not Tyler, that's John or whatever. But
yeah, no, I think because he introduced himself to her as Tyler when he like, you know.
But why is he introducing himself to like all these other cool bros in the parking lot, like watching him beat himself up? Like, why is he Tyler to them?
I don't know. Yeah, that's a good question. I think that's something that's like.
That doesn't matter as much to me as what you said before, the leap of logic, which is like, is this really a cool thing that you're doing?
Yeah, you buy it because you're 170 pages in by the time the twist gets here, and you're not thinking about that initial fight in the parking lot.
I'm also always curious in whether it's a movie or a book, like at what point the twist comes. And this is like 70-75%, which feels right. Like it feels like there's enough time that like it builds up to a point where like you understand like where it's coming, and then there's enough time to like explain it, as opposed to like, I remember still the number 23 where it like comes with like
the Jim Carrey movie.
Yeah, it comes with like 10 or 15 minutes left, and then the next 10 minutes is like explaining all the things you missed. It's like, no, this is bad. Like, what are we doing?
I never saw it, but
I remember being lousy.
Yeah. It's a numerology movie.
Yeah.
Numerology is the most boring, like, kind of conspiracy theory that you can possibly have. Take that, Taylor Swift.
Hey. You watch it.
It's not her, it's the fans, right?
Yeah, I mean, she likes 13 because like she was born on the 13th, and the people were just
Yeah, we're not getting into it. Good. Halt, abort.
What else about the book? Because I think
they changed the line in the movie from the book.
What?
From I want to have your abortion to I haven't been fucked like that since grade school.
Yeah, which they're both good.
Yeah,
man. I met Chuck. I told you this, I think, right? Did I tell this on the?
I don't remember. Go ahead.
We recorded that intro episode a while ago, so if we had just whatever, I'm sorry. But when Tell All came out, my friend and I bought tickets to see a reading in New York, and because we were two of the first 100 people, we got to meet him and have a book signed. Like everybody got like a signed copy, but also you could bring another book and could sign it. So we met him, and we had to ask a question. And I asked because of his morbid nature, I was like, if you could choose the way you died, what would you choose? And he said he would like to choke on the warm, still beating heart of Ann Coulter. And I was like, that's pretty good with no hesitation. So like he probably had gotten that question before, but even if he had, like, it was just like he had the answer ready. It was just like, it's pretty good.
Okay, yeah.
But he was nice. I mean, that book is whatever. I don't really remember much about it.
I haven't read it. I don't. That's one of the later ones. I stopped at.
Did you read Haunted, the short stories?
No, I read. I think Pygmy was the last one that I read.
That was after Haunted.
Yeah, but
you didn't read everything.
And then I read Snuff.
Yeah. Well, there's also a Fight Club 2 and a Fight Club 3.
Yeah. I was thinking about and especially because the next module I thought about Fight Club 2, but then I was like, I don't really want to do that book.
I remember I read it and I was like, this is fine. Chuck Palahniuk himself is a character in there. There's also Fight Club 3, which is also a graphic novel that I have not read yet. I think I bought because it was like there was like cheap, like they collected it and they sold it inexpensively on Kindle, and I bought that. But I haven't read it yet, but I'm just like, I think one thing that's actually better in the book than in the movie is the way they blackmail multiple bosses.
Yeah,
because in the movie he just like beats himself up and like walks out with a bunch of computer equipment that they don't really need. But here, like, I'm gonna threaten to tell everyone that I pissed in the soup, or like that, they distributed like this global national whatever distribution of children's films with pornography in it. Like, it feels like, yeah, that would be, there's no way to sort of
and then he presents that stuff in the afterword as being true, that he knows people that did that,
right? Which, cool.
Yeah, I mean, they don't have projectors like that anymore, really, unless you're on like the New Beverly,
right? But they're all those, like, probably what's being shown at the New Beverly is like from Tarantino's personal collection. Like, he has like control over.
Yeah.
I think it's interesting in the book. I totally forgot that like he meets Tyler not in an airplane but at a nude beach.
Yeah,
which is
with the thematically he creates a sculpture out of logs that looks like a hand for a minute, and he sits in the palm, and you get a truly like one of the book's motifs about perfection and how like all you can ever hope for is a second of perfection. And then that is abandoned in the movie entirely.
Like, I think the movie is better in ways, but there's stuff about the book I'm like, man, I wish I was in there. Like, it's because it's good. It's
yeah.
But also I understand, like, because also for a 200-ish page book to become a 2.5 hour, like, the movie's kind of long.
I haven't watched the movie in a decade, probably.
It's still really good.
Yeah, maybe I'll go back and watch it.
Have you ever been in a fight?
Yeah.
Like a fist fight?
Yeah.
Have you won?
Sure.
Do you like it?
No, it's not good. Not as an adult. I haven't been in a, I think the last time I hit someone, I was like 20, maybe.
So around the time you read this book? No, you read the book way before that.
Yeah, before that, I think. Have you?
No. And I don't want to. I think that's also the thing where like...
that's the thing. I don't... Well, you know what it is?
Although the book is just like, people want to be in a fight.
So yeah, also here's a secondary reading of this. I think what a lot of people miss when they read this book, and this is not remotely commentary on Chuck Palahniuk himself being gay. It was unknown that Chuck was gay when this book came out, and I mean it was known by Chuck, but it was unknown to the world, readers, to the world at large, and like similarly to The Matrix, right, which is obviously like a film made by two trans women.
Before they transitioned, yeah.
A lot of the messaging of the book, I think can be read in the context of homoeroticism.
Yeah.
And Chuck doesn't have to be gay for that to be the case. A hetero man could write this book and that would still be true of the book.
Yep.
Because I think that there is this sense of, men fighting sort of in the exclusion of women, dealing with purely the release that sensual, not even pleasure, but sensuality gives you.
Yeah.
Right. The sensory perception of pain, and how that pain and the bonding after that pain can create stronger relationships. Right. This is. The S&M community has known this for centuries, right? So this book, to me, can very easily be read as a homoerotic S&M novel.
Well, there's also literally a line where they're talking about there were, you mentioned before, we're a generation of men raised by women. Is another woman the answer? And
right. Yeah.
That's I know that's the point about we don't need to be in a relationship, whatever, but it's just maybe it's a dude, right? It's that's not what he's saying, but you could read it like that.
Yeah, for sure. And I think that that's not a reading that I would have had on this book when I was 17.
Right.
Which is I think probably mostly the people who read this book are 17 or were when it first came out.
Do you think people are still why are people for the first time now?
Yeah, I don't know, because Fight Club as a cultural phenomenon has passed.
Because that's what's because I think the book or the movie and the book are both still good, still objectively good, still hold up. And I think to us, I think it's also, and it's a question that somebody I follow on Instagram posed about the modern day equivalent. But it's for when we were in college, say from the time the movie comes out to when I graduate 10 or 11 years later or whatever. This poster on the wall is one of 5 or 10 posters. It's this is the type of guy you are. And it's not it's just kind of just guy, not even specific, just guy. But now if you have a Fight Club poster up, it's as an 18-year-old or whatever, that's a choice as opposed to fitting in.
I think there's a real Andrew Tate, Mike Cernovich.
Well, yeah, now.
Because those guys are or what's his name? Gavin McInnes. Those guys are their own kind of masculinity cult leaders who I think could look at a book like this and dismiss a lot of the homoeroticism and dismiss the frankly to me blatant Marxist messaging within it and sort of look at it as the solution to male loneliness, which is something that is now. I mean, I could see this book once again rising in the becoming much more popular.
Well, I think it has in the last several years
because of what people are thinking of as a crisis of male loneliness and things like that. And they're looking to this book and thinking you should learn how to fight. Mm-hmm. You should become the master of your own destiny. You're the bonds that you make with men are more important than the bonds that you make with women.
Yep.
And because they'll be able to understand you better.
And the women in your lives are literally just there for you to have sex with.
And to mother you. Yep. And to provide all these things. Now, I don't know. I honestly all that information that I have about Cernovich and Andrew Tate and those guys is secondhand. I don't know if I'm accurately clocking their audience or
no, I think you are. I think you are. And I also think that I think a lot of their readings of this come from the movie, not the book.
Yeah.
And I think the book is more explicit because in the movie, there's the memorable line in the movie where it's a guy shows at the Fight Club, he's putty or whatever, and after 6 months he's carved out of wood, right? And you're oh, I want that. But the book is basically you don't have to fight. Just find something that you care about, and that's your reason for taking care of yourself, right? And I think the movie does that too, but I think the book is more explicit. And this is just the thing that these people have found their community, and because of that, they want to clip their nails and get their hair cut and whatever. But in the movie, it's just bro, if you fight, you're gonna get shredded.
Yeah, shit rocks.
It's so good. I like in the book the assault committee, which is not in the movie at all. Like it's kind of like a subcommittee of Project Mayhem.
Well, I also say that the book is, I think, significantly more violent than the movie.
Yeah.
There's like more like actual murder and more like the book is scarier than the film is. You get the sense that this is like,
I think it's got it's broader scope, I think.
Yeah. It's consumed almost everything.
Because like in the movie, they set fires to like seemingly empty buildings. They roll that big ball through like times, like whatever. But this is just like, these people are going out and like killing people, which is probably also happening in the movie. They're just not, I don't know.
Yeah.
What do you think the narrator, this is before the TV show, wanted to get a dog and naming an Entourage?
Yeah, no, that's very funny. That's really, really funny.
Have your entourage follow you around?
Yeah, that's a good joke. I think that's also it. Like Chuck Palahniuk is really funny. Like he's like very clever and yeah, it's a shame that people I think misunderstand, especially this book.
Well, I also think like that's also going back to what I liked about other things, that like Invisible Monsters and stuff, like when I read that first, like I don't know if I fully grasped or realized, and this is like me just being dumb because I think it's pretty overt, like that's a trans story, right? Like it's not hiding the fact.
No.
Although, I mean, I guess it's kind of sort of a reveal toward the end or whatever, but like it's very clear what it is. But I think it's not only writing in a way that is new to people, but it's like telling the kind of stories that other people aren't telling.
Yeah. And
I think if he was maybe more overt about it being being a homoerotic whatever, as opposed to just like you can read into that, I don't know, but it's there.
I wonder, like, overt anything. I don't know.
I guess it would kind of be a hat on a hat, right? Like,
because
here it's.
I think it's there. I mean, I think it's overt enough. It's just that, like, I think especially in the probably more now that we are a culture where, like, at least the arts have, you know, like if you go on the Criterion channel, it'll be like LGBTQ month and like embracing diverse stories. And there's like these things like, maybe you would have to be more subtle about it now, but like in the 90s, you could be, I think, as overt as you wanted to be with a homoerotic story. And people who didn't want to see that part of it would just
could
go,
pretend
like,
it didn't
skate
exist.
right past it without having to look twice, because it's like, you know, why would that be? I'm enjoying this. What are you saying? Are you saying that I'm gay because I enjoy this? Right. Now, I love this book, and now you're telling me that this book is homoerotic. Right. Are you saying that I'm gay? And it's like, yeah, dude, you're gay. Deal with it.
What if I told you that the author of your favorite book is gay? What do you think then? Oh, no. Like,
well, I think it's interesting because I think that they've leapfrogged that information entirely with the Matrix.
Well, that's the thing.
It's like not even like in a very way, in very much the way that like that I've spoken of positively in the past, that once an author leaves a book out there, it is now the audience's and not the author's. Like, I think they've embraced that in a way that is true to them. Like, they're like, it doesn't matter what they intended. Right. Like, this is what this book means. This is what this movie means politically. And this is how I'm going to internalize it and make it my own.
It's so weird. And like, we talked about this because, again, The Matrix is also 1999. And like, it seems these two movies that have become weapons to a certain community, not even just like the right, because like it's whatever, like a subset of the right, where it's like both of these are, like you mentioned, explicitly progressive movies or progressive stories, and they're just like, nah, but like, have you been red pilled? It's like, no, what are you talking about?
Yeah, but bro, I want you to hit me as hard as you can.
Do you have a favorite Chuck book? Did we talk about? Did you mention that on here?
I like Choke.
Choke is good,
but at the same, I think like Choke and Survivor, and it's also like I actually think that like the cult of, which is funny because like I think his website is the cult, right? There's like,
well, it's not his website, but it's the official fan site, which is like basically his internet presence, but he has nothing to do with it.
But I think like the cult of Chuck Palahniuk hit a roadblock because you have Fight Club, which was not successful at first, but then became massively successful with DVDs and stuff like that. And then Survivor was going to be the next thing. And then 9/11 happened and the Survivor movie never got made. But had like the Survivor movie gotten made right on the heels of Fight Club, I think you would have seen like a much more stratospheric Stephen King style ascension of Chuck Palahniuk, especially into like that like cult filmic world.
Because then Clark Gregg, this is still so weird to me, wrote and directed Choke, which is fine.
Yeah, it's not a great movie.
It misses a lot of the point of it. But it still feels weird that like he did that. And I think a lot of people, like, I think that's
you go from David Fincher to Clark Gregg.
Right. But also, like, I think in terms of, like, people know him for this. Like, I think if you ask a lot of people who, like, this is their favorite movie or one of their favorite movies or their favorite book, like, I would not be surprised if a lot of them could not name a second book he's written. Because I think, like, there's probably
is, fine.
Precipitous. No, I'm not saying it's a negative.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, like, I don't know that people who have even read Choke know that Choke's a movie because it was so under the radar. And, like, I remember seeing it, like, after I read it, I'm like, oh, this is fine. And then after starting watching Community, I'm like, wait, Gillian Jacobs is like, I don't even remember anything about this movie. It's just like, it's just
Has any
wild.
of his other stuff, it feels weird because it feels like his stuff is
Visual,
so adaptable. And his first book was made into such a cultural phenomenon.
I know.
Like, how has none of his stuff been made into movies since then?
I don't know.
With the exception of Choke, which is also, Choke, by the way, is also maybe the least filmic of all of those because it is so, like, pornographic.
Yeah.
Like, it's so focused on, and like, I would watch a Choke movie made by Bruce LaBruce or something like
Who's that.
He's like a gay porn director. Oh. But he is like a gay porn auteur.
Yeah.
Right? He's like he makes like, or like I would watch Choke by like Gaspar Noé or something like that. Like if you got someone, but it would have to be made with porno money. And it's like or like that Abdella Kilatish, the guy that did Blue is the Warmest Color.
Oh, yeah,
Like these guys that make movies that are like
that are horny.
Yeah, and like sometimes feature penetrative sex and like non-simulated, and like you do something like that, and obviously like you have to make sure that, which Abdella Kilatish is maybe a bad example because he didn't make the set safe for his actors and stuff. But like if you can make Choke with that kind of aesthetic, like a real like this is a erotic movie. We're and not like just erotic, but like I don't know, embrace the actual spirit of it, which you're not going to get that with a movie that opens at AMC. It's just not going to happen.
And I think what was sad to me about Choke, because I'd seen Fight Club by that point, and I watched Choke, and I'm just like, and I don't think I've ever really articulated until just now, but it feels just like any other indie film of the mid 2000s.
Yeah.
And it loses everything that like makes Chuck. And I wonder if he just had a bad. I feel like, and I don't. Maybe I'm wishful thinking. I feel like Invisible Monsters like was like toyed with for a while and never became anything. But it is weird that like he's got more than a dozen novels. And as far as I know, we're both into like we would know.
Yeah.
Nothing. Not even like a TV series. Not like a.
Yeah.
It's wild.
He might be one of those like Elmore Leonard guys. Like the thing about Elmore Leonard is like he's got like 1,000 books, but like all of them are optioned and you can't like.
Oh, like people are just like squatting on.
Yeah, no one can get an Elmore Leonard book. And like it would, So I would bet that most of his books have been optioned in like a very Stephen King kind of way. The same way that like,
it's wild.
When Stephen King like signs a contract for a new book and the film rights are already sold, like it wouldn't surprise me if Chuck's books are
like author later this module, Laura Lippman, Prom Mom, before even Prom Mom came out, it was optioned, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly,
it's just, it doesn't even have to be like Stephen King. It'd be like another just author who's like very successful at what she does. But yeah, it's a wild because you feel like even if they weren't like, it wasn't like Choke was terrible, just wasn't good. Like it's not like it was like such a colossal failure that people were like, oh, we can't adapt this. I don't know. Also, you can make Survivor now.
Yeah, and actually, like I hate it when things are stopped or whatever for taste, because it's like the truth is that Survivor was like a function of its time, and it would have hit hardest in that era, regardless of 9/11 or whatever.
Yep. And
like you can be sensitive to people who, but it's like you can still tell flight hijacking stories. I don't know.
I will say, if you have not read other books of his first 5, which I'm not going to get their order right, but Fight Club, Invisible Monsters, Choke, Lullaby, Survivor are all great, I think. There's stuff other like I really liked Rant, the oral history. I think was really good. There's other stuff that's like after that I still really like, but those first 5 are like, and they're also all breezy. Like you can read them all quickly.
Yeah, he's never going to write. I don't think he's ever going to write like a 700-page book that's like.
He's no jest.
Yeah, or like Mark Danielewski or something like that. Which they're like, I think of him and Mark Danielewski in a very similar way, even though like stylistically they're
How so?
super different. I think those books both came out around the same time, like Fight Club and House of Leaves, and I think they embraced sort of the same cult audience. Although House of Leaves obviously didn't get into a movie, so it didn't have that wider thing.
Right.
But I will say, I had when I was in high school, and then a little bit after high school, my first couple years of college, like I had a lot of success getting people to read House of Leaves. That's maybe the book that I've had the most success getting other people to read. Yeah, because it's a book that I think appeals to people who don't read that often.
Like this, also.
Yeah. Which that sounds like damning praise, but I mean it like in a very. No, but I think it's a very high praise.
I feel like House of Leaves is like it's cool.
Yeah, exactly.
But I also think it's like you flip through like this does not look easy.
Yeah. But it's not. I don't think House of Leaves is a hard book.
It's approachable. No, yeah. Right. It's not like, again, I think we talked about it maybe in the last. Maybe we didn't. We talked about it with on the
Stephen
shark.
Hall.
Yeah. Raw shark texts, but like the end notes or the footnotes there are just so radically different than the end notes in Jest and whatever. Anyway, anything else you want to talk about? Or should we read the emails?
Let's read the emails.
So we have a lottery or email address, lottery@cageclub.me. We got Egg's email. Also, we've given her a shout out on past episodes. Egg changed her display name on Gmail to be her married name, but her email address is still her maiden name.
What do you want me to say about this? It's probably it's a pain in the ass to change your email address.
I know. But we have another email first that we're going to read from Neve Coppersmith, subject line fan mail.
Fan mail.
Dear Lottery Pod, I found your podcast in November 2022. I just gotten a library card for the first time in years. Library cards are great, man.
Fuck yeah. Saved my life, man.
Also, if you have a library card, you could probably get access to Canopy, which is actually like a really good streaming service. Like they have a lot of good stuff on there. So if you don't have that, check it out.
If you don't have a library card, go get a library card.
Yep. Free.
Yeah. Don't. It's the best service. And yeah. Go do it.
It's honestly, every time I get a book there, I'm just like, how does this exist?
Yeah.
It feels like
unreal.
My library
it's a miracle.
My library also lets you check out movies or music or video game. Like they have hundreds of video games. It's like, why? What are you doing?
Especially in America that increasingly hates shit like that.
Yeah. What do you mean? You let me borrow it for free?
Get back to the email.
Because I'd recently graduated from college and decided I wanted to start reading regularly for myself again. Hell yeah. I checked out Death in Our Hands by Otessa Moshfegh because everyone was talking about My Year of Rest and Relaxation. Also great. But that was the only one of her books that wasn't checked out. I found it haunting and sad after finishing it. I wanted to talk about it, but nobody I knew had read it, so I searched on Spotify and I found the first episode of your podcast. I've since read A Touch of Jen, Aesthetica, A Prayer for Owen Meany, The Bell Jar, Eileen, Teenager, The Idiot, and Never Let Me Go.
Holy shit.
Neve, doing it. I kind of jumped around episodes. I looked at your reading list and picked out the ones I thought I'd really like.
This is the ideal way to listen to the podcast, I think.
And save those apps for until after I'd read the books. I listened to a bunch of the others without reading them, and a few times the conversation you had made me want to read them anyway. All that to say, the pod has helped me sustain my goal of reading.
This is like
I'm
like
your dream.
Cry. This is the
and thinking and analyzing. This is also like we talked a lot on here about like the pace at which we go is insane. But don't do that.
Yeah.
Find episodes.
Do exactly what Neve is doing.
Mm-hmm. Also, like this is going to be one of our more popular, just because people probably search for this, or we've talked about it. It might not be because like there's too many people out there talking about it. Whatever. But look at the list because we've done probably close to 75 books now by this point. Like a lot of books, right? Mm-hmm. Find one that you like, or that you've been meaning to read, or that your friend told you to read, and like read it and whatever.
Yeah, this email is making me so happy.
Help me sustain my goal of reading and thinking and analyzing stuff, and it's given me really great recommendations. So thank you for that. I recently had to take a class on literature and science fiction for a series of reasons I won't detail here, and I loved it.
I love that there's mystery.
Because reading a bunch of books and thinking critically about them was something I was doing all the time already, in part because of your show.
Oh my God.
Hopefully at some point I'll read some stuff from the reading list along with the pod so I can email in my thoughts after I get through the backlog, or I could just start sending my thoughts about books you talked about ages ago.
Yeah,
do that.
Do it. I want to know what you think about all these books.
I might not remember, but Shreds will.
Yeah.
I was wondering if either of you have read Luster by Raven Leilani. We almost did that.
I own it. I own it, and I have...
In the last module, right? Unadaptable, because that's becoming adapted, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Milk Fed by Melissa Broder.
Yes.
What did she write that I read?
Pisces.
Yes, which is great. Or In the Dream House by Carmen Maria Machado.
I have not read that one.
Those are some of my favorite books I've read recently outside the pod. You've joked about doing a horny themed module before. Hell yeah.
It's no joke. It's coming.
Which I think you should, because it would be funny. And if you do it, you could talk about Milk Fed. I also wanted to ask you why you named it How to Win the Lottery. Okay, that's all for now. Hopefully the episode you read this on isn't for a book I'm saving for later. LOL. Sincerely, Neve.
Yeah, the horny module. Let's that's something that we really it's not going to be the next module because we already have that planned out. But I am always on the lookout for horny books for sure.
Would you do? I think the horniest book that I've read that you didn't tell me to read. Oh, maybe you did. I don't think so. I think it predated that.
Tampa. Yeah.
Where I was because I remember that was when I was going to Planet Fitness before I started walking around myself.
Wearing sweatpants.
No, wearing basketball shorts. It's different. It's worse. But being
reading Tampa on the
on an exercise bike, and I'm just I don't feel nobody knows what I'm reading, but I'm just I'm uncomfortable.
This is I was I worked on the beach for decades, and sometimes when I worked actually on the beach checking beach badges and stuff, so many people, this was during the 50 Shades of Grey era, so many people come on the beach holding 50 Shades of Grey.
Also come on the book,
and they would just plop down and read 50 Shades of Grey, and I was just I know what's going on in that book. How you're just out here in public reading that book. We don't all it's interesting that there's something interesting about books being books that are sometimes pornographic or I don't know, pornography is artless, right? I think is the distinction.
I'll know it when I see it. Is that the quote about it?
I'm not really interested in making a distinction between pornography and art, but you could not go on a beach with an iPad and start just watching pornography, right? But you can read 50 Shades of Grey, and it's and not only is it fine, but you're walking around advertising that you're reading 50 Shades of Grey, which is as far as I know, almost exclusively meant for titillation.
Yep.
It's not there's not literary value to that book.
It's societally acceptable titillation.
Yeah,
where it's this is the one that we've deemed you can read and be horny about.
Right, because I mean, it's not you could walk right on a beach reading Lady Chatterley's Lover or The Pisces or Milk Fed or any number of horny books, and people wouldn't know. But with 50 Shades of Grey, everybody knew.
Yeah.
And people were still walking around with that book.
I know that those sequels were big too, but did you ever see people reading the sequels? Because it feels
that's not a distinction that I would make.
I don't know.
But all this is to say is that
we're doing a horny module.
There will be a horny module.
Would we do Tampa?
I don't know. Yeah, maybe. Maybe. Tampa, the horniness in Tampa is difficult because...
Yeah, you want to describe what Tampa's about?
Tampa's a book about a sexual predator who she's a...
middle school teacher.
Is it middle school?
I think it's eighth grade.
It's an eighth grader. But it's from her perspective. And because she finds really just barely pubescent boys attractive, her sexual encounters with those boys is described as erotica because it's from her perspective. So there is this line, I remember when that book came out, a lot of people were this is child pornography. And it's no, it's not. But it is asking you to do a difficult thing with your brain when you're reading it, where it's this is written in a what I think is meant to be an erotic way, but then you're supposed to also have a sense of revulsion while reading that,
which is a heavy lift as an author.
It is, yeah. And I think Alyssa Nutting, I think she pulls it off really, really well. So like whether or not that's a horny book.
I mean, I think it's worth exploring in that module for that reason.
For sure. Yeah. And there's, you know, we've had this conversation before about how, a book, like horny books are really like mostly written by women. Like horny books that are written by men are, with the exception,
are gross.
Yeah, they're mostly like really gross. Like you read them and you're just like, ooh, like that's not erotic. That is something else. And I don't know if that's because I don't know. Like that might be like an innate homophobia in me that it's like I'm like not homophobia, but like, you know, like being in the like fantasy land of a.
No, it's like this isn't for you.
Yeah, the like being in the fantasy land of a man is like less titillating than being in the fantasy world of a woman. Because I'm a heterosexual male.
I mean, this is also something that we should save for the horny module.
Yeah.
But I think that there's so much art made by straight dudes that it's just like you have like you don't get this. This should be for like women.
Well, right. Also, I think maybe like also maybe men frequently don't read those books by women. Right. So like they don't. What's the horniest Bret Easton Ellis novel? Glamorama probably. Glamorama has that like maybe like 13-page threesome in the shower.
Yeah. Do you want to explain? I think we said maybe on the very first intro episode where the name came from.
No, I don't. I don't want to explain that.
Well, Neve asked.
It's a joke. It's you can interpret the joke how you want, but it's like think of the Shirley Jackson short story, The Lottery, and also it's a Simpsons reference. There's like a dark joke to it, and that's just it. Like figure it out yourself.
Yeah, and watch the Simpsons episode where Santa's little helper needs surgery, and you'll get. That'll also help.
Got a new dog, one with an untwistable stomach. That's the episode, right? Yeah.
We also have an email from Egg. Not reading.
Thank you so much for emailing in, Neve. You like sort of completed the mission statement for me of this entire podcast, which is to like, I don't know, hopefully just like help some people think more critically about the literature that they're reading.
Well, I think what Neve said, and I think
I'm not kidding. That made my I'm going to be walking on air for a week because of that email.
What I think, so we've talked in a way that I know zero of my friends listen to this podcast.
Yeah.
Because other than you, I think zero of my friends read books. And you have
you
have a handful of friends who like talk to you about episodes, but like they're also readers. And Egg is Egg's now sort of my friend. Aren't we friends, Egg? I like to think so.
You're in that liminal space where it's awkward.
I don't want Egg to be listening and be like, we're not friends. But like Egg's your friend and like you've been telling her to read, whatever. But Neve saying that they didn't have anybody who'd read those books means that they have people in their lives who do read. And I'm just like, that seems pretty cool. But also have them listen to the pod too. You're officially a member of the 30K Strong. They can be too.
We love you, Neve. Also, cool name. That's...
Neve put in the signature pronouncing the guy from Catfish, not like Neve Campbell.
Oh, it's spelled like Neve. Neve.
Neve Campbell. Sidney Prescott.
Sure. Yeah, Neve, cool name. All right.
Egg's reaction to Fight Club. Short email incoming because Shreds didn't confirm you guys were recording tonight.
Oh, whatever.
I texted you 6 hours ago. I'm like, does Egg know? You're like, yep. Whatever. This is the second time I've read Fight Club. Catch up. I'm at 3, baby. That was gross. I'm going to cut that out. Maybe not.
Because you're saying it like Al Pacino in Heat. Baby.
Different movie, but I got my hand up the Mona Lisa skirt.
Well, that was okay. Now you've made it gross.
That's devil's advocate.
Read the email.
It's funny, Egg writes, because there's a quote from this novel. I'm glad this happened in Egg's email, not Neve's email. Because there's a quote from this novel that I quoted all the time in high school and completely forgot it was from Fight Club. On a long enough timeline, everyone's survival rate goes to 0. I watched the movie before I read...
quoted that all the time in high school? This is very dark.
I watched the movie before I read the book, but do you think she means like this time or like originally?
I think originally.
But I definitely think the ending of the book is way better, what you said before, and more interesting than what I remember the movie being. I feel like it ends on a realer note and more sinister. Though I will say, buildings collapsing, Where Is My Mind Playing is an all-time great ending.
Not bad at all.
Lastly, Egg writes, I feel like the problem with rereading this is the twist is not subtle once you know. It kind of distracted me as I went along. I like that. I think it's
all over the place, though. It is like you are getting beaten over the head with a baseball bat of a twist for the entire novel.
All in all, Egg says, a nice palate cleanser after Infinite Jest.
Yeah, I agree.
Yep. So the next two books, this module, the short state module, you have not read. I have not read. We don't know really anything about.
Don't know anything about them.
Which is exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited for more Delaware facts.
Ooh, I have 7 more. Do you want one more?
Sure. Close it with one.
State dessert?
Yeah.
You want to guess?
Apple pie.
Peach pie.
Peach pie. Yeah, okay.
Keep reading.
Yeah. Today's crime
Thank you, Neve.
What?
So thank you, Neve.
Okay. Oh, God.
This book is filled with crimes.
I know. I don't just want to repeat a crime from the book, though. And I don't want to. I'm in a place where I started repeating crimes that I've already said.
You didn't realize you weren't repeating them
because I have the same crimes in my head all the time.
Uh-huh.
Oh, today's crime is racketeering.
Ooh.